Welcome to the Explainer. So take a quick second and just look around you. The baseline assumption that almost all of us operate under, right, is that we see the physical world first, and then we just kind of use words to slap labels on it. You see a chair, you call it a chair. You look up at the sky, you call it the sky. It really feels like language is just a mirror reflecting a reality that's already out there. But what if that's completely backward? What if the words you're using are actually acting as the very architects of the world you experience? It's a pretty profound question, isn't it? Do words describe reality, or do they actually create it? You know, neuroscience, psychology, linguistics, they're all pointing to something far stranger than we've ever realized. Language doesn't just neutrally describe your reality, it fundamentally changes the reality you experience on a totally neurological level. So today, we're going to undergo a complete paradigm shift. Section 1. The baseline illusion, how the brain uses words. Let's dive right into this by looking at the very foundation of human thought, which, as it turns out, is deeply, intimately connected to words. Because even when you're sitting perfectly silent in an empty room, your mind is just constantly generating internal language. You're never actually truly quiet inside. Your internal language engine is basically running on 5 distinct gears: narratives, labels, explanations, predictions, and interpretations. Now, your brain absolutely relies on this framework to structure reality. Without words, a lot of abstract concepts would just be completely impossible to hold clearly in your awareness. You see, your brain isn't just using language to communicate your thoughts to me. Language is actively shaping the thought itself way before it ever leaves your mouth.
Section 2. Rewiring perception, seeing through speech. Okay, let's see how this builds into something even more mind-blowing. We're talking about literally rewiring perception here. Because if language shapes thought, well, then it stands to reason that speakers of entirely different languages must perceive the world differently, right? And science shows us that they absolutely do.
Now let's anchor this in some hard science. This concept is known as the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis, or linguistic relativity. Basically, it's the theory that language structurally influences cognition and perception. This isn't just some abstract philosophical musings. It is a measurable cognitive reality. Let me show you exactly what I mean. Take a look at this comparison. In English, we navigate using what's called egocentric directions. You know, left, right, forward, backward. It all completely depends on which way you personally are facing. But in indigenous languages like Gugu Yemathir, they actually don't have words for left and right. No way, right? Instead, they use absolute directions, north, south, east, and west. So to say pass the salt, they might literally say pass the salt to the southwest. Because their language demands it, speakers of these languages develop this extraordinary, constant spatial awareness. Their brains are continuously tracking their exact geographic orientation in a way that our English-speaking brains simply don't. And this really perfectly illustrates just how deep this all goes. Language structure actually changes your visual attention. Think about this. Different languages divide the color spectrum differently. For instance, Russian has 2 completely distinct words for light blue, голубой, and dark blue, синий. Now, because their language treats them as entirely separate colors rather than just different shades of the same color, Russian speakers' brains actually detect the visual difference between those shades faster. It's wild. Your vocabulary literally upgrades your brain's visual processing speed.
Section 3. Hacking emotion and memory, the power of a word. So we've seen how language alters the external physical world. Now let's pivot and look inward. We're going to explore hacking emotion and memory and look at the sheer power of just a single word to totally change your internal reality.
The words you use internally don't just describe your feelings, they actually amplify or reduce your psychological intensity. Just listen to the difference here. I am absolutely terrified versus I'm nervous. The brain responds entirely differently to those 2 labels. Research actually shows that naming emotions, a process called affect labeling, literally reduces activity in the fear processing regions of your brain. Simply putting your feelings into the right words alters your neuroprocessing. It's a real game changer. So the really crucial point here is that if words can rewrite our emotions, they can also rewrite our past. Human memory isn't some perfect video recording on a hard drive. It's an active reconstruction. There's this super famous psychology experiment by Loftus and Palmer where participants watched the exact same video of a car accident, but they were asked different questions. People who were asked how fast the cars were going when they smashed into each other estimated significantly higher speeds than the folks who were asked how fast they hit. And even wilder, the smash group actually falsely remembered seeing broken glass that never even existed in the video. Their language literally copy-pasted fake details right into their memory. Section 4. Directing your attention, the filters of reality. Language doesn't just reshape the past, it basically dictates the present. Let's look at how language acts as the ultimate director of your attention, creating the very filters of your reality. Because your brain absolutely cannot consciously process the millions of bits of sensory data hitting you right now. It needs a filter, and language is that filter.
Have you ever learned a new word or a new concept, and then suddenly you start seeing it absolutely everywhere? Like maybe you buy a new red car, and suddenly every single car on the highway is red. You think, wow, this is suddenly so popular, right? Well, that is the Baader-Meinhof phenomenon, also known as the frequency illusion. The reality is that information was always there, right in front of you. You just didn't have the linguistic label for it yet. Once language gave you the word, your brain reprioritized your attention so you could finally notice it.
And this filtering mechanism is exactly why your internal dialogue is absolutely critical. We're constantly telling ourselves stories. If you repeatedly tell yourself things like, the world is dangerous, or people cannot be trusted, or I always fail, well, your brain listens. It begins filtering reality strictly through those exact assumptions. Language becomes predictive. Your mind will literally ignore the good stuff and actively search for evidence that perfectly matches your negative story. You are essentially talking your own emotional reality into existence.
And it actually goes even deeper than just our personal struggles. It shapes our fundamental concepts of existence. Take time, for example. In English, time is horizontal, right? The future is ahead of us. The past is behind us. But for the Aymara people of the Andes, the future is described as being behind them because it can't yet be seen. And Mandarin speakers often organize time vertically, stacking events up and down. These linguistic structures dictate how entire populations mentally organize their memories and plan out their whole lives. Section 5. Constructing human reality beyond the physical. As we pull back and look at the really big picture here, the tone kind of shifts. We aren't just talking about individual brains anymore. We're talking about constructing human reality. Let's look way beyond the physical world, to how language acts as the architect for all of human civilization. Raw reality is overwhelmingly, blindingly complex. Honestly, it's just too much data. So what does language do? It compresses that massive complexity into manageable boundaries. Good and bad, safe and dangerous, self and other. These categories simplify reality so your brain can process it quickly enough to keep you alive. But remember, they are just simplifications. These labels shape how an experience feels way before your conscious, logical analysis even has a chance to begin. And because language is really just a model your brain uses to compress and organize reality, it has limits. It always leaves something out. This is exactly why the most profound human experiences like deep meditation, breathtaking awe, severe trauma, or even just the surrealness of dreams so often feel completely beyond words. When an experience absolutely shatters the boundaries of our vocabulary, we realize that language isn't reality itself. It's just the map we use to try and navigate it. But oh, what a powerful map it is. Modern neuroscience tells us that consciousness is constructed, and language is our most powerful construction tool by far. Just look at this list: money, nations, religion, laws, identity, culture. None of these exist as physical atoms out there in the universe. They are shared language systems. They exist solely because of collective linguistic agreement. Language doesn't just describe human civilization. Language built it. At every single moment, that little voice inside your mind is not just some passive narrator observing your world. It is the architect actively helping to create the world you experience. It directs your attention, changes your emotions, rewrites your memories, and constructs your very identity. The words you think quietly really do shape the life you live. So as you go about your day today, I want to leave you with just this one question to ponder. If your words are creating your reality, what kind of world are you building inside your head right now?